Hello and welcome to Take from Caesar. My name is David Merlin. Nothing you'll hear me say is intended as legal advice. Anything that sounds like that to you, just consider it something somebody else might do on a planet far, far away where the law matters. It doesn't matter here. I prove it on a daily basis. The Roger Stone Indictment, a review. An indictment was serviced today, might have been filed yesterday, against Roger Stone, a long-time, pretty high-profile political figure. Worked for a lot of people. I don't know his entire background. I've heard it many times, but there's only so much room in my brain for things I have to remember. So I've always had a really good impression when listening to Roger Stone. I like him. He's aggressive, and he seems to be in pursuit of the truth. There are people out there that say he's told a lot of tall ones, but that's I don't know of them. And we're going to go through his indictment. It's 24 pages. I'll try to read quickly. At any time, of course, you can pause the video and read what you see if my diction isn't satisfactory for you. Satisfactory to you. Excuse me, that was terrible grammar. The Roger Stone Indictment, a review. 18 U.S.C. Section 2 is not a specific charge. It simply credits somebody with an important role in the crime as compared with others involved in the crime. And it is probably used to drive up the sentencing range. It might add a point to your sentencing total for how many months they'll what's the top number of months they could give you. Principles: whoever commits an offense against the United States or aids, abets, counsels, commands, induces, or procures its commission is punishable as a principle. And we'll see this in the caption of the indictment. 18 U.S.C. 1001. Roger Stone has 7 counts against him. The first 6 of which carry 5 years max each. That's 30 years max. And the final charge, 7, is impeding an official investigation. It carries 20 years. He's made false statements according to the indictment. 18 U.S.C. 1001. Whoever in any matter within the jurisdiction of the executive, legislative, or judicial branch of the government of the United States knowingly and willfully makes any materially false, fictitious, or fraudulent statement or representation. That's the clause under which he's charged. Subsection A does not apply to a party to a judicial proceeding. Okay? And the rest of the statute I just shrunk down into 10-pick. So let's focus on the larger type and the bold and italics. 1505, obstruction of proceedings before departments, agencies, and committees. Whoever corruptly influences, obstructs, or impedes, or endeavors to influence, obstruct, or impede the due and proper administration of the law. 5 years max. 1512, tampering with a witness, victim, or an informant. Just don't do this, you know? Don't do it. It's 20 years. Look at that. Up to 20 years. So for violating this, you're going to get a minimum of 4 years. Maybe as much as 6 on a maximum of 20. With a clean criminal background, you're down the scale for sentencing points. Whoever knowingly uses intimidation, threatens, or corruptly persuades another person, or attempts to do so, or engages in misleading conduct toward another person with the intent to influence, delay, or prevent the testimony of any person in an official proceeding. Pardon me. The text of the indictment, man, if that in fact is what he said, he's got more to fear from this charge than the others. And remember, it's not entirely whether or not you can win at trial. There's a lot that takes place before trial in the form of coercion, threats, duress. We should indict your wife. We should ruin your brother-in-law's business, investigate him too. Whatever they can find, they'll throw it at the defendant to get them to plead to 1, 2, 3 counts, whatever they devise there at the DOJ. If you corruptly try to influence, delay, or prevent the testimony of any person, man, the indictment looks bad on that charge. If he said what he said to somebody about testifying before the committee. So here we have the caption, Grand Jury, 1001, 1505, and 1512. And there's Section 2. He was a principal in relation to some of the charges they'd like to convict him on. Introduction. By, in, or around May 2016, the Democratic National Committee, DNC, and the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, DCCC, became aware that their computer systems had been compromised by unauthorized intrusions and hired a security company, Company 1, to identify the extent of the intrusions. On or about June 14, 2016, the DNC, through Company 1, publicly announced that it had been hacked by Russian government actors. From in or around July 2016 through in and around November 2016, an organization, Number 1, which had previously posted documents stolen by others from U.S. persons, entities, and the U.S. government, released tens of thousands of documents stolen from the DNC and the personal email account of the chairman of the U.S. presidential campaign of Hillary Clinton. Roger Stone came out today and said, and it's January 26, 2019, said, I will fight these, I'm innocent, it won't be any problem exonerating myself, so forth. So that's great for early on. He was just indicted. He could not have known until today what the text of the indictment was. And so you have to consider everything he said today as just talk, because when the screws are put to him, you have to look from the defendant's standpoint. Should I go to trial on this particular count? It might be easy to disprove some of these, but again, I point to that last charge, 1512, trying to corruptly trying to persuade somebody from not testifying. On or about July 22nd, 2016, Organization 1 released documents stolen from the DNC. Organization number 1, I think, is WikiLeaks. Between October 2016 and November 2016, a month later, Organization 1 released approximately 33 tranches of documents that had been stolen from the personal email account of the Clinton campaign chairman, totaling over 50,000 stolen documents. Roger Stone was a political consultant who worked for decades in U.S. politics and on U.S. political campaigns. Stone was an official in the U.S. presidential campaign of Donald Trump until in or around August 2015, and maintained regular contact with the publicly supported the Trump campaign through the 2016 election. During the summer of 2016, Stone spoke to senior Trump campaign officials about Organization 1 and information it might have that would be damaging to the Clinton campaign. Stone was contacted by senior Trump campaign officials to inquire about future releases by Organization 1. By in or around early August 2016, Stone was claiming both publicly and privately to have communicated with Organization Number 1. Is that illegal? Keep asking yourself that. By in and around mid-August of 2016, Organization 1 made a public statement denying direct communication with Stone. Thereafter, Stone said that his communication with Organization 1 had occurred through a person Stone described as a mutual friend, go-between, and intermediary. Stone also continued to communicate with members of the Trump campaign about Organization Number 1 and its intended future releases. After the 2016 U.S. presidential election, the U.S. House of Representatives Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, remember that, they're going to use this abbreviation, the House of Representatives Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, the U.S. Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, and the FBI opened or announced their respective investigations into Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election, which included investigating Stone's claim of contact with Organization Number 1. In response, Stone took steps to obstruct these investigations. Among other steps to obstruct the investigations, Stone made multiple false statements to the committee about his interactions regarding Organization 1 and falsely denied possessing records that contained evidence of these interactions. B. Attempted to persuade a witness to provide false testimony to and withhold pertinent information from the investigations. That's right there. You can tell they've got their eye on that one, the 20-year. That's their strongest leverage toward a plea agreement when you read the statements in this indictment. Other relevant individuals. Paragraph 9. Person 1 was a political commentator who worked with an online media publication during the 2016 presidential campaign. Person 1 spoke regularly with Stone throughout the campaign, including about the release of stolen documents by Organization 1. Person 2 was a radio host who had known Stone for more than a decade. In testimony before the committee on or about September 26th of 2017, Stone described Person 2, without naming him, as an intermediary, go-between, and mutual friend to the head of Organization Number 1. So, Julian Assange, Alex Jones come to mind. In a follow-up letter to the committee dated October 13th of 2017, Stone identified Person 2 by name and claimed Person 2 was the gentleman who confirmed for Mr. Stone that the head of Organization Number 1 had emails related to Hillary Clinton, which are pending publication. Background: Stone's communications about Organization Number 1 during the campaign. By in or around June and July of 2016, Stone informed senior Trump campaign officials that he had information indicating Organization 1 had documents whose release would be damaging to the Clinton campaign. The head of Organization 1 was located at all times relevant to at the Ecuadorian embassy in London, United Kingdom. That pretty much clears it up. That's Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. After the July 22, 2016 release of stolen DNC emails by Organization Number 1, a senior Trump campaign official was directed to contact Stone about any additional releases and what other damaging information Organization 1 had regarding the Clinton campaign. Stone thereafter told the Trump campaign about potential future releases of damaging material by Organization Number 1. Stone also corresponded with associates about contacting Organization Number 1 in order to obtain additional emails damaging to the Clinton campaign. A. On or about July 25, 2016, Stone sent an email to Person 1 with the subject line, "Get to the head of the organization, Assange." The body of the message read, "Get to Assange at Ecuadorian Embassy in London and get the pending Organization 1 emails. They deal with Foundation, allegedly." On or about the same day, Person 1 forwarded Stone's email to an associate who lived in the United Kingdom and was a supporter of the Trump campaign. B. On or about July 31st, 2016, Stone emailed Person 1 with the subject line, "Call me Monday." The body of the email read in part that the Person 1's associate in the United Kingdom should see the head of Organization Number 1. C. On or about August 2nd, 2016, Person 1 emailed Stone. Person 1 wrote that he was currently in Europe and planned to return in or around mid-August. Person 1 stated in part, "Word is friend in embassy plans 2 more dumps. One shortly after I'm back, 2nd in October. Impact planned to be very damaging." The phrase "friend in embassy" referred to the head of Organization Number 1. Person 1 added in the same email, "Time to let more than the Clinton campaign to be exposed as in bed with enemy if they are not all ready to drop HRC, Hillary." That appears to be the game hackers are now about. Would not hurt to start suggesting HRC old, memory bad, has stroke, neither he nor she well. I expect that much of the next dump focus, setting stage for foundation debacle. Okay. Paragraph 14. Starting in early August 016, after receiving the August 2nd 016 email from Person 1, Stone made repeated attempts about information he claimed to have learned from the head of the made repeated statements about the information he claimed to have learned from the head of organization number 1. A. On or about August 8th, 016, Stone attended a public event at which he stated, I actually have communicated with the head of the organization. I believe the next tranche of his documents pertain to the Clinton Foundation, but there's no telling what the October surprise may be. On or about October 12th of 016, Stone stated during an interview that he was in communication with the head of the organization, but was not at liberty to discuss what I have. On or about August 16th of 016, Stone stated during an interview that it became known on this program that I have had some back-channel communication with the organization and its head. In a second interview on or about the same day, Stone stated he communicated with the head of organization number 1 and that they had a mutual acquaintance who is a fine gentleman. On or about August 18th, 2016, Stone stated during a television interview that he had communicated with the head of the organization through an intermediary, somebody who is a mutual friend. On or about August 23rd, 016, Person 2 asked Stone during a radio interview, you've been in touch indirectly with the head of the organization. Can you give us any kind of insight? Is there an October surprise happening? Stone responded, well, first of all, I don't want to intimate in any way that I control or have influence with the head of the organization because I do not. We have a mutual friend, somebody we both trust, and therefore I am a recipient of pretty good information. The pundits, and this will be on conservative channels, of course, like Mark Levin, Laura Ingraham, Jay Sekulow, Hannity has good guests. They've referred to the Pentagon Papers. I think it was a 1974 case where somebody facilitated the release of documents that had been stolen from the government. And the Supreme Court ruled that's free speech. You are not in trouble for disseminating stolen information if you didn't steal it or participate in it, in the theft. So for all this language about, oh, he was in communication with and he worked with him to release the information or whatever, it doesn't lean toward the essential elements of any criminal statute. Paragraph 15, beginning on or about August 19th of 016, Stone exchanged written communications, including by text, message, and email, with Person 2 about Organization 1 and what the head of the organization planned to do. A. On or about August 19th, 016, Person 2 sent a text message to Stone that read in part, I'm going to have the head on my show next Thursday. On or about August 21st, Person 2 sent another text message to Stone writing in part, I have the head of the organization on Thursday, so I'm completely tied up on that day. B. On or about August 25th of 016, the head of the organization was a guest on Person 2's radio show for the first time. On or about August 26th of 016, Person 2 sent a text message to Stone that stated, the head of the organization talked about you last night. Stone asked what the head of the organization said, to which Person 2 responded, he didn't say anything bad. We were talking about how the press is trying to make it look like you and he are in cahoots. C. On or about August 27th, 016, Person 2 sent a text message to Stone that said, we are working on a head of the organization radio show and that he, Person 2, was in charge of the project. In a text message later sent later that day, Person 2 added, the head of the organization has kryptonite on Hillary. D. On or about September 18th, 2016, Stone sent a text message to Person 2 that said, I am emailing you a request to pass on to the head of the organization. Person 2 responded, okay. and added in a later text message, just remember, do not name me as your connection to the head of the organization. You had one before that you referred to. Okay. On or about the same day, September 18th, 2016, Stone emailed Person 2 an article with allegations against then-candidate Clinton related to her service as Secretary of State. Stone stated, please ask the head of the organization for any state or HRC email from August 10 to August 30, particularly on August 20, 2011, that mention the subject of the article or confirm this narrative. On or about September 19, 2016, Stone texted Person 2 again, writing, pass my message on to the head of the organization. Person 2 responded, I did. On or about September 20th, 2016, Person 2 forwarded the request to a friend who was an attorney with the ability to contact the head of the organization. Person 2 blind copied Stone on the forwarded email. On or about September 30th, 2016, Person 2 sent Stone via text message a photograph of Person 2 standing outside the Ecuadorian embassy in London, where the head of the organization was located. On or about October 1st, 2016, which was a Saturday, Person 2 sent Stone a text message that stated, Big News Wednesday, now pretend you don't know me. Hillary's campaign will die this week. In the days preceding these messages, the press had reported that the head of the organization planned to make a public announcement on or about Tuesday, October 4th, which was reported to be the 10-year anniversary of the founding of Organization Number 1. On or about October 2nd, 2016, Stone emailed Person 2 with the subject line, WTF, what the heck? A link to an article reporting that Organization 1 was canceling its highly anticipated Tuesday announcement due to security concerns. Person 2 responded, head fake. On or about the same day, Stone texted Person 2 and asked, did the head of the organization back off? On or about October 3rd, Person 2 initially responded, I can't talk about it. After further exchanges with Stone, Person 2 said, I think it's on for tomorrow. Person 2 added later that day, off the record, Hillary and her people are doing a full court press. They keep the head of the organization from making the next dump. That's all I can tell you on this line. Please leave my name out of it. In or around October 2016, Stone made statements about Organization 1's future releases, including statements similar to those that Person 2 made to him. For example, on or about October 3rd, Stone wrote to a supporter involved with the Trump campaign, spoke to my friend in London last night. The payload is still coming. Also on October 3rd, Stone received an email from a reporter who had connections to a high-ranking Trump campaign official that asked the head of the organization, what's he got? Hope it's good. Stone responded in part, it is. I'd tell the high-ranking Trump official, but he doesn't call me back. On or about October 4th, the head of the Organization 1 held a press conference but did not release any new materials pertaining to the Clinton campaign. Shortly afterwards, Stone received an email from the high-ranking Trump campaign official asking about the status of future releases by Organization 1. Stone answered that the head of the Organization 1 had a serious security concern, but that Organization 1 would release a load every week going forward. Later that day, on or about October 4th, the supporter involved with the Trump campaign asked Stone via text message if he had heard any more from London. Stone replied, yes. Want to talk on a secure line? Got WhatsApp? Stone subsequently told the supporter that more material would be released and that it would be damaging to the Clinton campaign. On or about October 7, 2016, Organization 1 released the first set of emails stolen from the Clinton campaign chairman. Shortly after Organization 1's release, an associate of the high-ranking Trump campaign official sent a text message to Stone that read, well done. In subsequent conversations with the senior Trump campaign officials, Stone claimed credit for having correctly predicted the October 7th, 2016 release. So far, whoopee-doo. Be right with you. Remember, you're looking for false statements. The 1505. What was the charge on 1505? And then 1512, trying to influence testimony, corruptly influence. The investigations. In or around 2017, government officials publicly disclosed investigations into Russian interference into the 2016 election and possible links to individuals associated with the campaigns. A. On or about January 13th, 2017, the chairman and vice chairman of the Senate Security Committee on Intelligence announced the committee would conduct an inquiry that would investigate, among other things, any intelligence regarding links between Russia and individuals associated with political campaigns, as well as Russian cyber activity and other active measures directed against the United States in connection with the election. On or about January 25th, 2017, the chairman and ranking member of the House announced that the House committee had been conducting an inquiry similar to the Senate's committee. On or about March 20th, 2017, the then director of the FBI testified at a House committee hearing and publicly disclosed that the FBI was investigating Russian interference in the 2016 election and possible links and coordination between the Trump campaign and the Russian government. Just in the last few days, it's been disclosed that Comey and Strzok, I think it was, went through the FISA application line by line. And Comey claimed 1 million times, I think, what was it, 270 times, that he doesn't know when he was interviewed. I don't know. I can't remember. I don't know. I just can't remember. They went through those applications line by line to groom them. So they were on top of those FISA applications. They weren't in the periphery. C. On or about March 20th, 2017, the then director testified at a hearing of public... I read that one. D. By in or around August 2017, news reports stated that a federal grand jury had opened an investigation into matters relating to Russian government efforts to interfere in the 2016 election, including possible links and coordination between the Trump campaign and the Russian government. Stone's false testimony to the House Committee on Intelligence. In or around May, I haven't read this indictment. I skimmed through it once, so plenty of this is new to me. I'm digesting it at the same time I go through it. In or around May 2017, the House Committee sent a letter requesting that Stone voluntarily appear before the committee and produce any documents, records, everything, graphs, charts, memoranda, everything you have. On or about May 22nd, 2017, Stone caused a letter to be submitted to the committee stating that Mr. Stone has no documents, records, or electronically other other than those widely available that reasonably could lead to the discovery of any facts within the investigation's publicly announced parameters. Good. That's from an attorney, no question. On or about September 26, 2017, Stone testified before the House in D.C. as part of the committee's ongoing investigation. In his opening statement, Stone stated, "These hearings are largely based on a yet unproven allegation that the Russian state is responsible for the hacking of the DNC and the Clinton campaign and the transfer of that information to Organization 1. Stone further stated that members of this committee had made certain assertions against me which must be rebutted here today, which included the charge that I knew in advance about and predicted the hacking of Clinton campaign chairman's email, and that I had advanced knowledge of the source of actual content of Organization 1 disclosures regarding Hillary Clinton." Very good. He's hedging against criminal charges by saying so. The charge that I knew in advance of or predicted. In other words, you can't tie me to what happened. I was just a guy after the disclosure of the documents that somebody else had stolen. going back to that Supreme Court case, the Pentagon Papers. Stolen documents given to was it the New York Times, and they published them? No problem. You can do that. In the course of his House committee testimony, Stone made a deliberately false and misleading statements to the committee concerning, among other things, his possession of documents pertinent to the investigation. Pertinent to the investigation, that might be kind of subjective. Somebody else's impression of what is and is not pertinent, they might try to drag you into. The source for his early August 2016 statements about Organization 1, requests he made for information from the head of the organization, his communications with his identified intermediary, and his communications with the Trump campaign organization. Stone's false and misleading testimony about his possession of documents pertinent to the investigation. 22. During his House testimony, Stone was asked, "So you have no emails to anyone concerning the allegations of hacked documents or any discussions you have had with third parties about the head of the organization? You have no emails, no texts, no documents whatsoever of any kind or nature?" Stone falsely and misleading answered, "That is correct. Not to my knowledge." Not to his knowledge. He didn't say absolutely not. He said to his knowledge. In truth and in fact, Stone had sent and received numerous emails and text messages during the 2016 campaign in which he discussed Organization 1, its head, and its possession of the hacked emails. At the time of his false testimony, Stone was still in possession of many of these emails and text messages, including, and this could get dicey for him if he still had these, and he said, "To the best of my knowledge, I don't have them." The email from Stone to Person 1 on or about July 25th of 2016 that read in part, "Get to the head of the organization at the Ecuadorian Embassy in London and get the pending Organization 1 emails. They deal with Foundation, allegedly." That sounds like it's squarely within the parameters of what was requested. B. The email from Stone to Person 1 on or about July 31st of 2016 that said an associate of Person 1 should see the head of the organization. The email from Person 1 to Stone on August 2nd that stated in part, "Word is friend in embassy plans 2 more dumps, one shortly after I'm back, second one in October. Impact planned to be very damaging." D. Dozens of text messages and emails beginning on or about August 19th, 2016, and continuing through the election between Stone and Person 2 in which they discussed Organization 1 and the head of Organization 1. E. The email from Stone on or about October 3rd to the supporter involved with the Trump campaign, which read in part, "Spoke to my friend in London last night. The payload is still coming." And F. The emails on or about October 1st, 2016, between Stone and the high-ranking member of the Trump campaign, including Stone's statement that Organization 1 would release a load every week going forward. So that sounds pretty pertinent or relevant to the investigation. That would be a tough one to get out of, I feel. And they're talking about false statements. They aren't talking about influence of testimony yet. 24. By falsely claiming that he had no emails or text messages in his possession that referred to the head of the organization, Stone avoided providing a basis for the committee to subpoena records in his possession that could have shown that other aspects of his testimony were false and misleading. Oh, okay. Stone's false and misleading testimony about his early August 2016 statement. During his House committee testimony on or about September 26th of 2017, Stone was asked to explain his statements in early August 2016 about being in contact with the head of Organization Number 1. Stone was specifically asked about his statement on or about August 8th, 2016 that "I've actually communicated with the head of the organization," as well as his statement on or about August 12th of 2016 that he was in communication with the head of the organization, but was not at liberty to discuss what I have. 26. Stone responded that his public references to having a means of contacting Organization 1 referred exclusively to his contact with a journalist who Stone described as a go-between, as an intermediary, and as a mutual friend. of the head of the organization. Stone stated that he asked this individual, his intermediary, to confirm what the head of the organization had tweeted himself on July 21st, and that he had the Clinton emails and that he would publish them. Stone further stated that the intermediary was someone I knew had interviewed the head of the organization, and I merely wanted confirmation of what he had tweeted on the 21st. Stone declined to tell the committee the name of his intermediary, but provided a description in his testimony that was consistent with person 2. 27. On or about October 13, 2017, Stone caused a letter to be submitted to the committee that identified person 2 by the name as the gentleman who confirmed for Mr. Stone that the head of the organization had emails related to Hillary Clinton, which are pending publication. 28. Stone's explanation of his August 2016 statements about communicating with the head of the organization was false and misleading. In truth and in fact, the first time person 2 interviewed the head of the organization, 1, was on or about October 25th of 2016, after Stone made his August 8th and August 12th public statements. Similarly, at the time Stone made his August 2016 statement, Stone had directed person 1, not person 2, to contact the head of the organization, and person 1, not person 2, had told Stone in advance of Stone's August 8th and August 12th public statements that word is friendly in embassy plans 2 more dumps, including 1 in October. At no time did Stone identify person 1 to the committee as another individual Stone contacted to serve as a go-between intermediary or other source of information from Organization 1. Stone also never disclosed his exchanges with person 1 when answering the committee's question about Stone's August 8th and 12th statements. Okay. 29. Stone's false and misleading testimony about requests he made for information from the head of the organization. During his committee testimony, Stone was asked, "What was the extent of the communication with the intermediary?" Stone replied, "I asked him to confirm that the tweet of the head of the organization of the 21st was accurate, that they did in fact have Hillary Clinton emails, and that they would release them." Stone was then asked, "Did you ask the intermediary to communicate anything else to the head of the organization?" Stone falsely and misleadingly responded, "I did not." Stone was then asked, "Did you ask the intermediary to do anything on your own behalf?" Stone falsely and misleadingly responded, "I did not." 30. In truth and in fact, Stone directed both person 1 and person 2 to pass on requests to the head of the organization for documents that Stone believed would be damaging to the Clinton campaign. So far the conduct is innocent, but the evasion is what they're pointing at. False statements to the committee, whether you were acting illegally or not, you misrepresented what you were doing, is what they claim here. For example, as described above, on or about July 25th, 2016, Stone sent person 1 an email that read, "Get to the head of the organization at the Ecuadorian embassy in London and get the pending emails. They deal with Foundation, allegedly." That's contrary to what he said to the committee, all right. On or about September 18th, 2016, Stone sent a text message to person 2 that said, "I'm emailing you a request to pass on to the head of the organization," and then emailed person 2 an article with allegations against then-candidate Clinton related to her service as Secretary of State. Stone added, "Please ask the head of the organization for any state or Hillary email from August 10th to August 30, particularly August 20th, 2011, that mention the subject of the article or confirm this narrative." C. On or about September 19th, 2016, Stone texted person 2 again, writing, "Pass my message on to the head of the organization." Person 2 responded, "I did." And the next day, person 2, on an email blind copied to Stone, forwarded the request to an attorney who had the ability to contact the head of the organization. Stone's false and misleading testimony about communication with his identified intermediary. During the committee testimony, Stone was asked repeatedly about his communications with the person he identified as the intermediary. Stone falsely and misleadingly stated that he had never communicated with his intermediary in writing or in any way. During one exchange, Stone falsely and misleadingly claimed only to have spoken with the intermediary telephonically. Question: how did you communicate with the intermediary? Over the phone. And did you have any other means of communicating with the intermediary? No. No text messages? No. None of the list, right? No. Later during his testimony, Stone again falsely denied ever communicating with his intermediary in writing. So you never communicated with your intermediary in writing in any way? No. Never emailed him or texted him? He's not an email guy. So all your conversations with him were in person or over the phone? Correct. 32. In truth and in fact, as described above, Stone in person 2, who Stone identified to the committee as his intermediary, engaged in frequent written communication by email and text message. Stone also engaged in frequent written communication by email and text message with person 1, who also provided Stone with information regarding Organization 1. Written communications between Stone and person 1 and between Stone and person 2 continued through Stone's committee testimony. Indeed, on or about September 26, 2017, the day Stone testified before the committee and denied having ever sent or received emails or text messages from person 2, Stone and person 2 exchanged over 30 text messages. Certain electronic messages between Stone and person 1 and between Stone and person 2 would have been material to the committee. For example, in or around July of 2016, Stone emailed person 1 to get to the head of the organization, 1, and obtain the pending emails. In or around September 2016, Stone sent messages directing person 2 to pass the request on to the head of the organization. On or about January 6th, 2017, person 2 sent Stone an email that had the subject line, "Back Channel BS." In the email, person 2 wrote, "Well, I have put together timelines, and you said you have a back channel way back a month before I had the head of the organization on my show. I have never had a conversation with the head of the organization other than my radio show. I have pieced it all together. So you may as well tell the truth that you had no back channel, or there's the guy you were talking about early August." Stone's false and misleading testimony about communications with the Trump campaign. During his committee testimony, Stone was asked, "Did you discuss your conversations with the intermediary with anyone involved in the Trump campaign?" Stone falsely and misleadingly answered, "I did not." In truth and in fact, as described above, Stone spoke to multiple individuals involved in the Trump campaign about what he claimed to have learned from his intermediary in Organization Number 1, including the following. A. On multiple occasions, Stone told senior Trump campaign officials about materials possessed by Organization 1 and the time of future releases. On or about October 3rd, 2016, Stone wrote to a supporter involved in the Trump campaign, "Spoke to my friend in London last night. The payload is still coming." On or about October 4th, 2016, Stone told a high-ranking Trump official that the head of the organization had a serious security concern but would release a load every week going forward. Attempts to prevent person 2 from contradicting Stone's false statements to the committee. Sounds like 1512. Influencing testimony. On or about October 19, 2017, Stone sent person 2 an excerpt of his letter to the committee that identified person 2 as his intermediary to Organization Number 1. Stone urged person 2, if asked by the committee, to falsely confirm that Stone had previously testified to falsely confirm what Stone had previously testified to, including that it was person 2 who provided Stone with the basis for Stone's early August 2016 statements about contact with Organization 1. Person 2 repeatedly told Stone that his testimony was false and told him to correct his testimony to the committee. Stone did not do so. Stone then engaged in a prolonged effort to prevent person 2 from contradicting Stone's false statements to the committee. In or around November 017, Person 2 received a request from the committee to testify voluntarily before the committee. After being contacted by the committee, Person 2 spoke and texted repeatedly with Stone. In these discussions, Stone sought to have Person 2 testify falsely, either that Person 2 was the identified mediary or that Person 2 could not remember what he had told Stone. Alternatively, Stone sought to have Person 2 invoke the Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. For example, on or about November 19, 017, in a text message to Stone, Person 2 said that his lawyer wanted to see him. Stone responded, "Stone Wallet, plead the Fifth. Anything to save the plan. Richard Nixon." On or about November 20th, 2017, Person 2 informed the committee that he declined the committee's request for a voluntary interview. On or about November 21st, 017, Person 2 texted Stone, "I was told that the House committee lawyer told my lawyer that I will be getting a subpoena." Stone responded, "That was the point at which your lawyers should have told them you would assert your Fifth Amendment rights if compelled to appear." On or about November 28, 017, Person 2 received a subpoena compelling testimony before the committee. Person 2 informed Stone of the subpoena. On or about November 30th, 017, Stone asked Person 1 to write publicly about Person 2. Person 1 responded, "Are you sure you want to make something out of this now? Why not wait to see what Person 2 does? You may be defending yourself too much, raising new questions that will fuel new inquiries. This may be a time to say less, not more." Stone responded by telling Person 1 that Person 2 will take the Fifth, but let's hold a day. E. On multiple occasions, including in or about December 1st of 017, Stone told Person 2 that Person 2 should go do a frank Pentagally before the committee in order to avoid contradicting Stone's testimony. Frank Pentangeli is a character in the film The Godfather Part 2, which both Stone and Person 2 had discussed, who testifies before a congressional committee and in that testimony claims not to know critical information that he does in fact know. F. On or about December 1st of 017, Stone texted Person 2, "And if you turned over anything to the FBI, you're a fool." Later that day, Person 2 texted Stone, "You need to amend your testimony before I testify on the 15th. Stone responded, "If you testify, you're a fool. Because of Trump, I could never get away with certain my Fifth Amendment rights, but you can. I guarantee you, you are the one who gets indicted for perjury if you're stupid enough to testify." That's pretty bad right there. And that's what they tagged as corrupt attempts to influence testimony. 38. On or about December 12th of 017, Person 2 informed the committee that he intended to assert his Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination if required to appear by subpoena. Person 2 invoked his Fifth Amendment privilege in part to avoid providing evidence that would show Stone's previous testimony to Congress was false. Following Person 2's convictions or invocation of his Fifth Amendment privilege not to testify before the committee, Stone and Person 2 continued to have discussions about the various investigations into Russian interference in the 2016 election and what information Person 2 would provide to investigators. During these conversations, Stone repeatedly made statements intended to prevent Person 2 from cooperating with the investigations. For example, A. On or about Christmas Eve, 017, my birthday, Person 2 texted Stone, "I met the head of the organization for the first time this year, September 7th. Docs prove that. You should be honest with the FBI. There was no back channel. Be honest." Stone replied approximately 2 minutes later, "I'm not talking to the FBI, and if you're smart, you won't either." On or about April 9th, 2018, Stone wrote in an email to Person 2, "You are a rat, a stoolie. You backstab your friends, run your mouth. My lawyers are dying to rip you to shreds. Stone also said he would take that dog away from you," referring to Person 2's dog. On or about the same day, Stone wrote Person 2, "I am so ready. Let's get it on. Prepare to die. Okay. On or about May 21st, 2018, person 2 wrote in an email to Stone, "You should have just been honest with the House Intel Committee. You've opened yourself up to perjury charges like an idiot." Stone responded, "You are so full of it. You got nothing. Keep running your mouth and I'll file a bar complaint against your friend," the attorney who had the ability to contact organization number 1. The counts. Obstruction of a proceeding. Maximum sentence 5 years. HPSCI signifies House Permanent Subcommittee on Intelligence. From in or around May 2017 through at least December 2017 within the District of Columbia and elsewhere, the defendant Roger Jason Stone Jr. corruptly influenced, obstructed, impeded, and endeavored to influence, obstruct, and impede the due and proper exercise of the power of inquiry under which an inquiry and investigation is being had by either House and any committee of either House and any joint committee of the Congress, to wit, Stone testified falsely and misleadingly at the House hearing in or around September 2017. Stone failed to turn over and lied about the existence of responsive records to the committee's requests about documents. Stone submitted and caused to be submitted a letter to the committee falsely and misleadingly describing communications with Person 2. And Stone attempted to have Person 2 testify falsely before the committee or prevent him from testifying, in violation of 1505 as a principle. Counts 2 through 6, that's 5 of them. Maximum sentence 5 years per count. On or about September 26th of 2017 within the District of Columbia and elsewhere, in a matter within the jurisdiction of the legislative branch of the government of the United States, the defendant, Roger Stone, knowingly and willfully made and caused to be made materially false, fictitious, and fraudulent statements and representations, which are, count 2. Stone testified falsely that he did not have emails with third parties about the head of the organization, and that he did not have any documents, emails, or text messages that refer to the head of the organization. Stone testified falsely that his August 2016 references to being in contact with the head of the organization 1 were references to communications with a single go-between, mutual friend, and intermediary, who Stone identified as Person 2. Stone testified falsely that he did not ask the person he referred to as his go-between, mutual friend, and intermediary to communicate anything to the head of the organization, and did not ask the intermediary to do anything on Stone's behalf. Count 5. Stone testified falsely that he and the person he referred to as his go-between, mutual friend, and intermediary did not communicate via text message or email about organization number 1. 6. Stone testified falsely that he had never discussed his conversations with the person he referred to as his go-between, mutual friend, and intermediary with anyone involved in the Trump campaign, all in violation of Section 1001A2. They've made a really good case for those, personally. How falsely they recorded the facts is anybody's guess, but from the standpoint that this indictment is very simple, if true, they got the goods on this guy for a lot of years. He's up a maximum of 50 years on all of these counts, and I think it's a matter of negotiation from here on out if they're close to accurate on these allegations. Count 7, witness tampering, 45, between in or around September 2017 and present. Within the District of Columbia and elsewhere, the defendant Roger Stone knowingly and intentionally corruptly persuaded and attempted to corruptly persuade another person, to wit, Person 2, with intent to influence, delay, and prevent the testimony of any person in an official proceeding, in violation of 1512b1. Maximum 20 years. So there's the indictment. And I do not envy Roger Stone. If the text of the emails and and text messages and the like that they cite here as reasons for going after him, if those allegations are accurate, he's got trouble. And I say that from the standpoint of a defendant. They're turning the screws on him. He's already had to sell his house, his car. You know, he'll be living in the street soon. They've ruined him. But these are really simple allegations. It'll be interesting to see what kind of arguments his lawyers come up with for pretrial dismissal. But the big one is that 20-year trying to influence somebody in their... I've seen people charged with influencing witnesses that did a lot less than what they say in this indictment. So we'll see how it works out for Mr. Stone, who I happen to like. But if they've accurately depicted or described any of his conduct in this indictment, some of it is really damning and over the top. You don't do this. And then instead of correcting his testimony and handing over the documents to the committee, he contacts another witness and dissuades him from testifying. And so he goes, I'm going to claim Fifth Amendment. And look at what all the scheming did to Roger Stone. Now he's right in the thick of a whole lot of really bad stuff. And in front of a jury, if they can substantiate the allegations made in this indictment, it's going to look really bad to a trial jury. So the proof of innocence has to be very strong. That concludes my review of the Roger Stone indictment. My review, and I wish him well, but at the same time I encourage everybody, don't do what they said Roger Stone did in that indictment. I just don't like the looks of it at all. Thank you for attending Take from Caesar. Be sure to visit the website wevgov.com. It's a tax protester website that cites nothing but law and case law. And it makes you a tax protester. If you believe in the law, the government will libel and slander you. So I took a snapshot of that site. I'm leaving it just as it is, when it was labeled the tax protester website. And you have the proof on the 7th Circuit, wevgov.com homepage. Click on that proof in the 7th Circuit, and there's an exchange of briefs between me and the government's top tax attorney, Richard E. Zuckerman. And you'll see they don't have a clue. The tax code's perfect. They can't deny it. Anyway, enjoy the free stuff on the web. Thanks for visiting my YouTube channel. Hope you enjoy the rest of my videos, and I'll see you in the next one.